The repairman will fix and repair all sorts of things, from weapons to deeds. There are people who have a talent for such unusual craftsmanship. They are able to restore the memories that an object has. The hero wipes his sword and rejoices in his work. This story is about one such person. In one of the taverns of the city, an adventurer throws down his shield in rage and shouts that it is complete junk. How could the hero order him to use it? He wants him to see what he's done. He only has one ability he's good for. The seeker invited him to his parties out of pity. The guy just hisses in frustration. The blonde man doesn't understand how they dared to send him such a worn-out shield despite the fact that it was an S-rank mission. The hero tries to justify himself. This shield was only able to protect against the wyvern's attack today. This monster is, admittedly, an A-rank, but still. The adventurer interrupts him and shouts that it's all because he used all his power. The hero was with them, although he doesn't even know how to fight properly, but in the knight's opinion, any fool can fix things. The hero quietly repeats the last words and remembers how he worked. In order to open his shop, he, being a repairman, earned money by fixing things and weapons despite the fact that he was of no use in battle. But his thoughts are interrupted by the blonde's shout. He calls the hero a servant and orders him to get out of this position already. The hero also gets angry and agrees in response to this. The blonde is very surprised by this. The dark-haired boy says he's just trying to make peace and leaves the tavern. The adventurer breathes a sigh of relief. Then someone picks up the shield and says with admiration that it's amazing. He heard that this shield can protect against a wyvern attack. He wonders if it belongs to the blonde knight. He understands that Lind has come and tells him that some good-for-nothing recently fixed his shield. But even so, he does not plan to give it back. Lind confidently says that he will receive it and leaves. The fair-haired man reasons with himself that the person who came likes this kind of thing, all sorts of trash, and remembers that he had a strange expression on his face. Although, what difference does it make anyway? The agitated repairman is now thinking that he is still an adventurer, but not at all fit for battle. He remembers the guy's cry that the hero only slows everyone down and is an amateur repairman and a burden. The guy was sure that he was capable of first-class things. He sighs heavily because he does not know what to do now. He has no money, and how can he now go towards his dream? Then Lind calls him and asks if the repairman-san will fulfill his request. The hero is very surprised and tries to remember this adventurer. Does he really know about him as a repairman? The one who came promises to pay generously if they fix his sword. The repairman is even more surprised and asks again. They move to a more convenient location, where the hero asks if he understood correctly that the sword belongs to Lin-san. He confirms this. The repairman falls silent for a second. He examines the sword and says that it looks like it hasn't been used much, but it's an important item. Although the sword itself is nicked and chipped, the family crest is properly engraved. The hero turns the sword, and for a second, the adventurer sees the boy's eyes light up from the reflection of the blade. The repairman, after a thorough inspection, says that he sees how the sword has been cared for. He thinks that it is an antique item. Probably after repairing, Lind will not be able to use it the same way as before. If the seeker trusts him, the hero will do everything in his power. The decision remains with the customer. Lind replies that so be it. He asks Layer-kun to work with him. Layer happily agrees. The hero puts the sword on the cloth and remembers his childhood. Then he was told that if he stayed too long, his father would scold him again. Little Lair could not tear himself away from the beauty. He asked his grandpa if it was true that he had made the plate. It was so beautifully decorated. His grandpa then exhaled and said that it was not so, he had only repaired it. The grandson did not know such a word. The man said that, to put it simply, he restores missing parts to any objects, no matter what shape or color they are. Grandpa was so happy when he looked at all these things. He asked Lyra to look at them. They hide memories. Little Lyra asked his grandfather to let him try. It was his grandfather who taught the hero everything. With these memories, he begins the renovation. The hero carefully cleans the sword and retempers the blade. He then applies magic to the weapon, and after the sword flares up, he concludes with a smile that everything is ready. A few days later, Lyre comes to collect his reward. He looks into the bag and starts shaking. He doesn't understand how this happened. Lyre asks in response, maybe something is wrong. The guy doesn't believe that all this gold is for him, there is so much in there. The adventurer confirms this with a gentle smile. The hero did an incredible job. The guy still doesn't accept it. He says he's just glad he was useful. He wonders why Lind came to him. He says he saw the skirmish near the tavern. This scares Lyle. He again remembers how he was called a servant and ordered to leave his post. The guy clenches his fists tightly. Lind asks if he understood correctly that the hero fixed that shield. This question surprises the guy. The adventurer continues. It seems to him that this item was often used, but the adventurer did not notice that there were large or new scratches on the shield. And he was still repelling monster attacks, and his durability was returning every time he was repaired. He doesn't think that a normal repairman could do this kind of task. The hero must have put a lot of effort into working with him. The guy is embarrassed after such words. He says that, frankly speaking, he has no experience at all yet. Despite all his attempts, he is at the very beginning of his journey. Lyle says that his grandfather was a repairman, and he left him the workshop. Everything there reminds him of him, so this place is so important to him, so he should not give up, at least for the sake of the workshop. However, even so, the guy understands perfectly well that he will have to learn a lot to become a full-fledged specialist, until one day he opens his own shop. Lind, after a short silence, says that in fact, this sword belonged to his late father. This surprises Lyle. The hero remembers how the seeker said that this was his sword, how upon inspection he saw scuffs and cracks with a properly engraved coat of arms. Lind goes on to say that he used the sword when he first started out as an adventurer, which is why it looks like that now. He was afraid that the sword was no longer useful. He would be grateful if the hero could fix it. The seeker carefully touches the blade and continues, then the memory of his father could come alive again. These words touch Lyle. He remembers how his grandfather taught him, asking him to look at a thing that had its own memories. The hero thinks that he has decided that he will definitely become a repairman like his grandfather, a master who could fix memories. Lyra jumps up and thanks Lin-san. The seeker responds by saying that he should be the one thanking the hero, and then asks the boy. Lind asks seriously if Lyra will do this for her dream. The hero's eyes light up. He looks at the bag of gold again and quietly agrees. Then he shouts loudly and joyfully that it is true. He will do everything to make his dream come true. The seeker also starts smiling happily and promises that the guy will probably have a lot of orders very soon. The hero, in response, with an incomprehensible look, replies that he really might be right. A few days later, in a high-difficulty dungeon, the adventurers encounter an angry dragon. They are scared, and the dragon appears again at the lower entrance. The dragon continues to get angry and attack the heroes. One of the adventurers doubts that they can defeat it. Their equipment is too low level. This guy suggests retreating and starts running away. Lind stays. He prepares to attack, and begins to draw his sword from its sheath. Lind runs towards the enemy and shouts that he will not retreat. No matter who is in front of him, he is no opponent to this sword. His eyes glow as he swings his sword. An adventurer defeats a dragon with one blow. His team can't believe what they see. Lind, meanwhile, cleans the sword, holds up the gleaming, intact blade and chuckles, calling Lyle incredible. There is a long line to the hero's workshop. Lind enters. Lyle welcomes him to Repair of Memories. The seeker says in admiration that the hero is quite cute and notes that there is no end to the customers. The guy replies that it is all thanks to Lin-san. Lyle shows that he uses his workshop both for its intended purpose and as a repair shop, although the space is a bit small. The seeker now understands that this is a good start. He hopes that the guy will succeed, because his work is worthy of it. The hero does not understand what the interlocutor means. He explains that at the moment he leads a group of SSS-ranked participants. Many of his acquaintances have already said how wonderful his sword looks. Lyle, confused, asks to wait. Now it is clear where so many orders come from. Although it has just opened, who would have thought that it would be so cool? He says that, of course, he is glad that Lind helped him so much, but the guy sadly thinks to himself that the seeker clearly overestimates his capabilities. He believes that this will not lead to anything good. Suddenly, a customer enters the shop. He greets the repairman and says that he needs to give him something. Lyle, confused, replies that he is ready to listen and asks Lin-san to wait. The seeker agrees and thinks, it's incredible how the hero became popular in such a short time. Now he is calm about him. A girl approaches Lind and asks in irritation how much longer she will wait here. The seeker replies that he is very sorry. And he calls the girl, Asya-sama. A customer comes out of the shop and thanks the repairman. The hero thanks the man for the order. He sighs, now he can rest, but then he remembers Lin-san. The guy shouts welcome when Lind and Asya enter. Lyle takes them to the workshop, then notices that the seeker has a guest today and asks who the girl is. The girl notes that only common people would call her that girl and says that she is called Asya. She forcefully orders Lind to immediately cut off the hero's head. Lyle is frightened and realizes that she called him a commoner. The adventurer laughs and tells Asa-sama that there is no need to get so excited. The man says that the repairman's name is Lyle. He owns Repair of Memories, and Lind can honestly say that of all the workshops he only comes here, the level of repair of the hero is simply top-notch. The hero, shocked, asks for the last words again. He says that he is glad to meet you, and that his name is Lair de Scale. Asya, with a serious expression on her face, examines the guy. She explains that she wouldn't be here if she didn't know Lind. Then the girl shows the dress. Lyle looks at the child's dress with surprise and asks to be allowed to examine it. The hero notices that the thing looks worn, the fabric is damaged, and the cut is coming apart. He wonders what kind of thing it is. Asya, who clearly doesn't want to tell anything, wonders if the repairman doesn't understand that it's a dress. Lyle agrees, but that's not what he asked about. The girl doesn't understand what he asked then. Her demand is more important than any other, so she asks the guy to be extremely brief. The hero doesn't know what to say and thinks that she is a very difficult child. Lind intervenes in the conversation. He says that what the repairman sees in front of him belonged to Asisi-sama's mother when she was still very young. Lyle asks again and looks at the dress again. He realizes that when the girl was still very young, a mysterious craftsman made a truly magnificent thing. And despite all the problems, this dress is still very valuable. The hero asks what to do with it. Lind starts to explain, but then Asya stands up. She forcefully orders Lind to watch what he says. The man smiles in response. The hero attracts attention to himself. Asya explains that she wants Lyle to bring the dress to perfection in the shortest possible time, that's all. The girl stands up and says, before leaving, that that's all. Lind also says goodbye and says that they're going. Lyle ponders over Ashi-sama's request that he take on her order as soon as possible. But he doesn't understand why. He whispers to Linda-sama. The hero apologizes for not letting him go. The adventurer replies that it's okay, he should apologize for not telling him anything properly. The repairman prepares to listen. He asks why Asya-san wants him to help her quickly. Lind considers the answer. He says that the girl may have seemed too intrusive to him, but the thing is that she wants to tidy up her dress, it's just that this thing is connected with her memories. The hero immediately remembers his grandfather. Lyle explains that this is precisely why he wanted to know about the dress. The adventurer explains that several years ago he worked closely with Asya-sama during a mission. Ashi-sama's mother, Miranda-sama, was a very kind-hearted person, to be honest. The owner of the dress, Miranda-sama, she. The hero asks again if she is terminally ill. Lind confirms this. Lyle continues to listen in silence. A few years ago, the woman was struck by an unknown disease and no doctor could find a cure. Her condition worsened every day. Now, despite the fact that she sleeps all the time, she suffers terribly. Now Lyra understands. Lind continues, when the time comes, Asya-sama will take her place. It seems he has said enough. The man lowers his head and asks him to forgive him. He is very sorry. Lyle is very surprised and asks why she should hang her head. It's not Linda's fault, since this dress is so important. He doesn't have time to finish. Lind tells him again that this dress is, first of all, a precious memory received from an important person in his life. The hero listens to him silently. And then he suggests that apparently, when Asya-sama was little, she often wore it. The seeker confirms this, and he said that there is one famous repairman who can fix anything. That's why they came here, counting on his abilities. The hero understands that this was probably Lin-san's big request. He says out loud that he understands and will be glad to fix this thing. They can trust him. Lind thanks him. Lian thanks him. Lyle asks if there is anything he should be careful of. He remembers that's what Grandpa always said. The guy thinks about the name of the shop, Memory Repair, and thinks that this time he will make every effort and do the impossible. The hero says out loud that it is true. The dress is very old. He has never seen such a style. They explain to him that it is all because the dress was adjusted to the previous owner, Miranda-sama. It is not surprising that the guy does this for the first time. Lyra notices that she is now. Lind immediately understands the question and confirms it. The hero is surprised and then asks why he called him a famous repairman and entrusted him with the dress. The man explains that he was only saying what Miranda-sama once said. The guy thinks that everything turned out to be surprisingly simple, he and a famous repairman. Could it really be all because of her? After a second of thought, he jumps up and thanks Linda-sama again. The hero promises to do everything possible. Several days pass. Lyle thinks that the dress seems to have been restored, but something is wrong with him. He sighs heavily. The guy realizes with horror that if he had brought the dress to Lin-san, Azuya-sama would have definitely gotten angry. He remembers how she ordered his head to be cut off from his shoulders. He comes to the right place and wonders if it is here. The guy looks at the huge building in shock. He didn't think that people could live like that. Lin-sama didn't say anything about it. Now he's wondering who Asuya-san is. He stutters and quietly addresses the servant. He asks with a stern face what the hero needs. The guy explains that he came to Asuya-sama about the dress and introduces himself. Asuya-sama notices something. She wonders if it's really him. Lyle continues to make excuses. He is not some suspicious type, honestly. The servant was about to throw him out, but then Asuya appeared. She asked what the guy was doing there. The repairman is glad to see her. The girl wonders why he decided to break into her home and what he is. She stops herself and says that it is all Lin's influence. The hero asks him to forgive him, he just wanted to know. The girl asks what it is. The servant asks if everything is alright. Asuya calms him down. At this time, Lyle hands her a piece of paper. There are notes on it about the old restoration. Apparently, he should follow them. The dress clearly had some kind of decoration or something on it before. He would like to return it to its original form for her mother, but he can't do it himself. If Asuya-sama allows, he would like to know more about what she knows. In one shop in the city, he had already seen something similar that could have been on this dress. Maybe some part of it was lost, or, in general, he really needs to know what she thinks and knows. The girl asks again about the dress. Now she is interested in where the guy could have seen such a store. If she allows, Lyle will show everything, find it, and bring it. The hero bows and runs away. Asuya clutches the notes tightly. The girl goes into the room, and there she remembers her childhood. She opens a drawer where a small brooch is visible. The girl remembers how she called her mother. Then she asked her mother why she didn't throw away the old dress. Mother answered that it was a very important memory for her. Asuya didn't understand these words. Miranda said that the girl was probably still too young. Asuya looked at her mother's happy expression with surprise, and then noticed that there was a brooch there. Miranda confirmed this, and said that the decoration must have gotten stuck. Since the dress is in such a state, there is nothing that can be done about it. With these words, the woman unhooked the brooch. And then she gave it to her daughter. She said that she wanted Asuya to take it for herself. Her daughter is a wonderful girl. When she grows up, she will definitely meet a wonderful person, and then she will always want to see his image in everything therefore. Emerging from her memories, Asuya takes the decoration and leaves the room with it. At this time, Lyle is upset because he can't do anything. Can't he do anything with this dress? He thinks that he doesn't have any time left. The hero decides to try to look today. He is very surprised when Asuya-san enters the workshop. The girl bows her head and says that she apologizes for her behavior. She is fully aware that she is asking for the impossible. Lyle looks at her silently. Asuya continues to apologize. She is sorry that she trusted the dress to another person. She came to tell the hero something. The girl admits that she still doesn't trust him, but if it helps her mother. Lyle, after these words, says that he didn't ask to trust him. He's just a repairman and therefore does everything in his power. He, with a tremor in his voice, explains that he is simply trying to recreate her with Miranda, the very thoughts and memories. During these words, the hero begins to stagger and then falls unconscious. Asuya screams and runs to the guy. The embarrassed hero laughs and asks for forgiveness. He just lost his balance. The girl helps to collect the scattered sheets and begins to examine them. Lyle tries to restore the sequence of the pages. Asuya takes the hero by the hand. She says that she trusts him and asks him to fix the dress of memories. With these words, she puts her mother's brooch in his hand. Lyle wants to tell her something when Lind runs in screaming. The girl is surprised by his appearance. The adventurer says that they need to return as soon as possible, because Miranda-sama. The heroes are scared. Asuya jumps up and runs to the exit. Lyle stops her and asks her to wait. At this time, Asuya's father is sitting next to his wife in her house. He is crying and asking Miranda not to leave. The man is worried about where his daughter is running around. Here she enters the room with Lyle and Lindo. Her father calls out to her and then is surprised by the dress she is wearing. Asuya approaches her mother. Miranda opens her eyes and addresses her daughter in response. The girl smiles brightly and says that she is very happy, she is so lucky to be her daughter. She recalls the words about growing up and says that she still doesn't understand what her mother meant that day, but she promises to one day become a wonderful lady like her mother. The woman looks at her daughter with surprised eyes. Asuya asks her mother to remember forever how happy she is. Miranda quietly calls her daughter by name. She says with tears in her eyes that she is very beautiful, her hand is shaking badly. Then the woman remembers the time when she herself was a child, how her future husband gave her this dress, how she unwrapped the gift, how she put it on for the first time and showed it to her fiancé. How happy they were at that time. Miranda continues to cry and smile. She thanks her family for everything. Several days pass. The hero is working in the shop when Asuya comes to him and says that they haven't seen each other for a long time. Lyle is surprised that Asuya-san came. He leads the girl into the room. She bows her head and apologizes for losing her temper over mending her mother's dress, but she thanks the hero with all her heart. After that, she puts something on the table. The repairman is interested in what it is. Asuya says that it is something that was dear to her mother. Miranda wanted her daughter to give this thing to the hero. Lyle silently looks at the pile of papers. Now he understands what was handed to him. Miranda-san gave the name of the first dressmaker of her dress. His name was Long Descile, his grandfather. She apologized for not being able to attend his funeral, and also wrote that she was sincerely grateful to him for everything and hoped that he was not angry with her. When the hero read the name, he immediately remembered how his grandfather worked with this dress. He remembers his grandfather's words. He always said that everything they do is just repairing someone's important memories. These words touch Asuya. She says that, to be honest, her mother asked about the hero from the very beginning. The girl simply didn't want to trust her mother's important memories to some stranger. It seemed unsafe to her, but she had no idea what to do. It was very good that they were so similar. The heroes begin to smile. Lyle agrees with Asuya-san with a happy expression. The girl starts to pout, and in this case asks to stop calling her some stranger. These words frighten the hero. The girl suggests, since that's the case, to remove the formalities on her part and simply call her Asuya. The guy tries to justify himself, he wasn't talking about that. He thinks that a young lady like her shouldn't hear herself addressed in such a way. In that case, Asuya suggests that we assume that she didn't say that. The hero chuckles and says that now they have come to an agreement. Lyle thinks that at first he thought she was just a spoiled brat, but now he is sure that she is good. The guy remembers how she looked when they first met. It seemed that she ordered to be called Her Highness. The hero thinks that his shop started working only thanks to Lin-san and Asuya. He remembers how the adventurer asked him to fulfill his request, how Asuya said that she trusted him and asked him to fix the dress of memories. He should be grateful to them. The girl at this time looks at him questioningly. She is surprised by the prolonged silence. Lyra says out loud that, although he has already spoken about this, but he is happy to meet Asuya again. The girl, with a radiant smile, replies that it is mutual. The guy also smiles back. Here, the hero remembers something and asks where Lin-san is today. Asuya tries to answer him, but someone looks into the shop. A man in shabby and dirty clothes asks to forgive him. Lyle is ready to listen to him. He asks what happened. The visitor hesitates, takes something out of his pocket, falls to his knees, and asks to fix this object. He raises his head and holds out a broken hairpin on a handkerchief. The hero tries to ask about the object, but the man who entered does not listen to him. He jumps up, promises to pay, asks again to fix everything, and runs away. Lyle is left standing with his mouth open. Asuya looks at the hairpin and says that she has seen it somewhere before. Lyle asks her to think carefully. She agrees. She should remember. She suggests that the hairpin may have belonged to the young man's mother. The hero agrees. It is possible. For some reason, he felt like something was wrong. He looked like he came from the slums, so where did he get that hairpin from? The hero notices that although the hairpin is broken, it is clear that it is an extremely expensive item. The girl, after a moment of silence, assumes that the item is stolen. The guy agrees again. Everything is possible among the poor. Many earn their bread by theft and other crimes, but for some reason it seems to him that she was not stolen. He remembers how his face looked when he asked, "It was too serious." Lyle thinks deeply. Azia sees it. She says that he can count on her in any case. She will try to find out something about this hairpin. The hero begins to sparkle with happiness. The girl reminds that she has already promised this, and now it is time for her. The ship is waiting for her. Lyle says goodbye to her and says that from now on they will work together. Several days pass. Asya is in the castle of the Kingdom of Elite. She is still trying to remember where she could have seen this thing. She studied old literature and encyclopedias, looking for the image of the hairpin she needed. She tried to compare it with the jewelry that her ancestors had, but she was unable to find anything similar. Now she wonders why the man addressed Lyle specifically. She thinks with regret that her father is also busy. Then she notices something. The girl greets Princess Fran and apologizes for distracting her. Princess of the Elite Country, Fran Elite Alicio, turns and greets her little sister Asya. They haven't seen each other for a long time. Asya wonders why the princess came here. Fran says that her sister's father made some arrangements with His Majesty, and as for her, she was just taking a stroll. Asya asks what she was doing when she was walking. The blonde girl looks into the empty space in front of her and touches it with her fingers. She says that she was talking to flower fairies. Then the girl turns and looks at Asya. She notices that this activity sounds very funny. Princess Fran looks even more attentively and sees little fairies flying around her interlocutor. Here, Asya hears someone talking. The children are talking to each other. They notice that Fran is always in her fantasies, saying that she is chatting with fairies, but this is complete nonsense. The girl listens attentively and begins to get angry. Then the princess calls out to her. She asks what happened. Asya apologizes. She didn't think about Fran at all. She smiles brightly in response and says that it is true. The girl notices something in the princess's hair. She says that she would like to know something from Fran-sama. She would like to know about this hairpin. Lyle at this time comes to some street. He is not sure if he came to the right address. It seems to him that the young man went somewhere in this direction. He was right about the slums. There is so much there, how can he find anything? Here, he notices some noise. He sees other guys attacking the boy. One of them shouts why Tenya is behaving like this. The other orders him not to lie and to return the hairpin quickly. They don't understand how Tenya trusted someone with such an expensive thing. The dark-haired boy makes excuses and says that they just don't know anything. These words make his offenders even angrier. How can some brat say that to them? One of the kids takes a swing at Shadow. The hero grabs the guy's hand and asks him to stop. The fair-haired boy pulls it away and asks who Lyle is. The dark-haired boy recognizes the hero. The repairman declares that Tenya is his friend. If they do something to him, they will immediately regret it. The children get scared and run away. The hero exhales. He extends his hand to the boy, apologizes to Tenya-kun for coming so suddenly, introduces himself, and asks what they wanted to achieve. Tenya says that they steal to live, and that they somehow found out that he has an expensive hairpin, the one he recently brought in for repair. Now everything is clear to Lyle. Only he didn't see Tenya do anything bad. The boy agrees with him and says that he, however, managed to anger the fairies. The hero asks again and remembers the words of those guys. Tenya assumes that the repairman decided that he was weird. Since birth, the boy has been hearing their voices. No wonder everyone thinks he's crazy. His parents died and he was left alone, so it's pretty hard for him. He starts to get angry and declares that no matter what anyone says, he doesn't want to say goodbye to that hairpin. Lyle puts her hand on his head and says that she believes he is on Tenya-kun's side. The hero explains that he is not scary or crazy. He was so desperately trying to protect this hairpin, even though it was broken. Tenya is very brave. The boy starts crying from such words. Then Lyle says that, frankly speaking, he came to ask what the guy knows about the hairpin. Tenya replies that he really didn't explain anything properly then. He apologizes for just leaving his things and leaving. Rez believes him. He is ready to tell everything. Tenya explains that he met her a couple of days ago, the one who, like him, sees fairies, that incredible girl. The guy is lost in memories. He then noticed how the fairies were circling around the girl and asked if she could see them too. He then suggested that Fran take a walk in the city. There are no adults in the slums, and it is quite dangerous. She might get lost here. Does she agree? The girl agreed with him. Tenya asked if this was her first time here. He didn't think he had seen her before. Fran replied that she had gotten lost before, but never in this place. She had simply followed the fairies and ended up here. Tenya was surprised. Was she really the same as him? Could she really hear them too? The girl said that everyone was probably looking for her already. Tenya, delighted, offered to take her to the city and hand her over to the adults. So they did. When the heroes entered the city, they heard someone running and shouting where Princess Fran had disappeared to. These people had excited voices. Tenya was then happy and told her to go faster because they were so worried about her. Fran responded by taking off her hairpin and giving it to the guide, telling him to use it. She thanked him and called him a sweet and good man. Embarrassed, Tenya began to justify himself. Did she really think he was cute? It was too much for him, he couldn't accept such a gift. In that case, the girl decided to do it differently. She offered to return the pin when they met again. After that, Fran left with the knights. Tenya watched her go. Now everything is clear to Lyra. It means the guy has a hairpin from that unusual girl. It turns out they found a common language, since he says that they see fairies together. The hero asks when they will be next time, but seeing the boy's face, he stops and looks at him questioningly. Tenya, with sadness in her voice, says that there will be no next time because Fran is the princess of this kingdom. Lyra is shocked by this. How is this possible? The boy says that he was shocked too, but since that day he has spoken to her through the fairies and learned a lot. As much as he wanted to see her again, it was not going to happen. Fran was royalty while he was an orphan, and even in the distant future they would never see each other again. However, yesterday, he spoke to her again through the fairies. Fran conveyed that, someday, when the boy was an adult, he would do everything possible and personally return her promise. Tenya, with a sparkle in her eyes, promises that she will do everything possible and personally return what she promised. Everything is clear to Lyra now, and then there is only one thing left for him to do. The hero says that he will do his best to fix this thing, but the boy must also try to become stronger so that the meeting can take place, even if it takes a lot of attempts. He is confident that Tenya will be able to convey to her everything he wanted. The boy happily thanks him. Lyra is also happy with such determination. If so, now the young man will have to try his best to become stronger, right? The next day, Asya comes to the shop. She says that it seems that they interfered in something that is not their business. The hero agrees with her and notices that Franzon and Tenya-kun are very similar. The girl nods in response. She will wait impatiently for him to finally gain the necessary strength and see her again. How unusual it is. Two completely different people, living almost in the same place, met thanks to the voice of fairies. Some kind of incredible meeting, just like a fairy tale. Lyra agrees with her. Asya is now interested in how Tenya will act in the end. The hero is also interested. Here Lind enters the room. He greets the hero. They haven't seen each other for a long time. Lyra begins to say that he just heard some rumors, as they are interrupted by someone looking out from behind the man's back. He says that Lind-san told him all about Lyra, but in all his years as an adventurer, this is the first time he has been to such a place. Tenya holds out his sword and asks for it to be repaired. The pin on his neck shines brightly. He smiles happily, and the heroes smile back. Lyra will be happy to fulfill the order. At this moment, someone touches the book and furiously promises that he will never forgive this repairman. Lyle remembers his father arguing with his grandfather. He asked why he had brought his grandson back here again, and whether he was really going to teach him the craft. The man then said that his son would never, under any circumstances, become a repairman. Grandfather wanted to justify himself to Schatz, but his father interrupted him. Work should remain work. He was never with him, and his mother, he did not even have memories of his family. Apparently repairs are more important to grandfather than family. Grandfather then looked at the book and said about the memories, has nothing changed since then? It was all Lyra's dream. The boy stood up and asked himself if it was really a dream. He looked at the note on the table and remembered that today. The hero goes to the castle. He greets his majesty hesitantly and thanks him for the opportunity to visit. Asya interrupts him and whispers whether Lyle thinks he is speaking pretentiously. The king begins to laugh. He says what a hero he is, a simple repairman. The guy also starts laughing from embarrassment. It can't be. The day came when the ruler of the kingdom personally wished to meet him. The king said that recently he had heard rumors that an authoritative repairman had appeared in the royal capital. Lyle thinks that he really has had a lot more clients lately. He is certainly happy, but did his daughter Fran tell him about him? The king has a small favor to ask of the repairman, which he hopes has not caught the hero off guard. Lyle quickly asks how he can help. He is given a book and asked to look at it. The hero asks what this is. Fran explains that these are the treatises of Saint Lugenica. This is the original. Lyle asks if he is right in knowing that Saint Lugenica is the religion that the ancient elves believed in. The king confirms this and tells that 100 years ago the ancient elves believed in the religion of the country of Elta, and in Saint Lugenica, the symbols found in sacred writings have magical powers. In other words, if you say the word for fire, it will appear. You don't have to have magical powers for that. The treatises contain incredible power, which activates powerful ancient magic. Alas, the faith in this religion has long since faded into oblivion. The ancient elven symbols have now become a ghostly language. The king addresses Lyle by name. The man says he wants him to fix these writings. The hero is surprised that he is trusted with such an important thing. They had already tried to repair them decades ago. He must do it for the sake of protecting the country's cultural heritage and researching ancient magic that holds many secrets. Original works need to be put in order from time to time. Lyle tries to refuse. He is afraid that even with the best repairs, no one will be able to read the ancient Elvish. He is asked not to worry about this. Then someone enters the hall and says that he is already here. It's an elf. He notices that they haven't met before, and says that his name is Tylo. He will help Lyle-sama so that they can read the ancient Elven, while the hero will be fixing. He will try to read everything. The king asks again if he can rely on the hero. After Lyle leaves, Fran asks his father what will happen next. The man asks again what she is talking about. The girl says that they shouldn't deceive their guests. They need to know why the choice fell on Lyle-sama, so what will they do? The king thinks. He asks them to perceive his wish as a small selfish request. Inwardly, he invites them to find out what their grandson is like. Lyle begins repairs and reflects on who would have thought that the tractates of the ancient elves had such power. It might even become a replacement for modern magic, the theory of which had long since become obsolete. He had not heard of anyone seriously studying this issue. Perhaps if he can patch up the works, then the study of ancient magic will begin. The hero would like to see it in action at least once. Lyle exhales. It seems that he has finished one part, if he can still return to his previous appearance. The hero is interrupted by Tylo. The elf with a smile on his face offers the repairman to rest. The guy agrees with him. Rest would not hurt him. Tylo asks how the renovation is going. The hero replies that it is going slowly but successfully. The hardest part will be working with the inside. You have to adjust. It's terrible, but what can you do? The main thing is not to spoil it, otherwise the elf won't be able to read it. Tylo asks if Lyle-san has studied this business somewhere. The hero asks if he means if he had a teacher. The elf confirms this. It's just that the repairman is so young and already known for his craft, maybe he just has talent. Lyle replies that it is true. He is really young and says that his grandfather taught him everything. Unfortunately, he died when the hero was younger. All that is left of him are numerous memories. Tylo says that he understands everything and asks if he can find out anything else. Lyle thinks that the question concerns his grandfather. The elf replies that he is simply very curious and would like to know. The hero says that this workshop was left to him by his grandfather. He used to come here often with his father and watched with interest how his grandfather worked. Tylo assumes that Lyle followed in his footsteps. The repairman confirms this. He would like to earn the same image and good reputation. He learned everything he could from his grandfather. But he not only learned something very important, but also remembered it for the rest of his life. The request to always stay close to the client and connect his thoughts and feelings during the repair, because this is the most important thing in the work of the repairman. The hero remembers spending time fixing all sorts of things of all shapes that are so dear to their owners. In fact, it is quite difficult to help people while trying not to pay attention to their feelings. Grandpa said it would take time to understand. The elf listens to him attentively, a dark atmosphere thickening around him. Lyle, confused, asks him to forgive him. He has been talking too much. Tylo says that this is not true at all. The hero is a great storyteller. He is very sorry that he distracted him. The repairman replies that everything is fine and adds that, for example, he cannot read elven writing. It is incredible that Tylo can understand this and calls the elf very smart. This is the first time the guy asks for something like this, but he wants to borrow Tylo's strength. The elf agrees. Lyle notices his unusual reaction and asks if she can ask him a few questions about the history of elves and all that. He is very interested in many things. The assistant doesn't mind, but he needs to sort out some things and says he'll be out for a bit. He's sorry he interrupted his work. They can continue the conversation later. The elf comes out and quietly says that he will catch the hero by surprise. He gets very angry and asks why he talks like that. He says that his grandson is the worst repairman. Lyle returns to work. He wonders what happened to the elf there. He is very interested. The hero notices that the next page in the treatise is torn out. He reasons out loud that the sheets are white on both sides, and there are no signs of intervention. The guy assumes that the king did it. The man said that they had already tried to repair the books several years ago, and he wondered what they could have done to such an expensive item. Lyle says he'll make it as close as possible, although he honestly has no idea how to fix it. He thinks he can fix everything here. The hero notices a dictionary on the shelf. Maybe there are notes there, hardly anything about ancient Elvish. He sees a bookmark and opens the book. It turns out to be a diary. It says that something stupid happened that day. A man was asked to fix an old book. He was told that this was not just an ancient book, but a scripture. Only no one should talk about it or spread rumors. This was a royal request. Would he cope? The repairman sighs. Is it really the royal one? They decided to shift this onto him. They call him Lundum-sama and ask him to fix the scripture since he is the best repairman in the whole world. Lyle doesn't understand what it is yet, so he needs to read everything. Lund thought the request was stupid. He was wondering what kind of treatise it was. He needed to fix some old book. The man looked at her again. He sighs heavily when a woman looks into the shop. Lund wonders who else this early in the morning could bring. The girl said that she came from the lands of the elves, and that her name was Eliza. She knew that the repairman was going to fix the scriptures, and she came to help Lund-sama. The man was too embarrassed to utter a word. Then he agreed and began to laugh convulsively. The girl was surprised by such a reaction. She wanted to add something about the repair. But Lund interrupted her. He agreed to such a job, he could handle it himself. Eliza didn't know how to understand it. The man replied that it would be a disgrace, as a repairman, if he accepted help from someone else. The girl asked again about the disgrace. Lund continued. Everyone in this kingdom knows him, not in the world. The elf asked if he could fix the memories. The man didn't understand what she was talking about. Elira said that these scriptures were used by ancient elves for hundreds of years. Not to mention that what is written there is the teachings of Saint Luzhnik, whom her ancestors believed in. His existence and culture are described there, as well as history and thoughts. All of this is described in the scriptures. For them, the elves, whose race is in decline, the only book left by their ancestors is a hope and support for the future. The scriptures are quite difficult to understand, but if only they could read the language of the ancient elves. Lund listened to this in silence. He started laughing and said that nothing could be simpler. He understood correctly that they just wanted to return to normal life. Later, the man recalled the words about memories. How could he fix people's feelings? He was just a repairman. He didn't care what was said there. All he had to do was bring the thing back to its original form. This is actually a royal request. If he can do it, he will become a royal repairman. And if nothing happens. Lund began to get angry and hit the treatise with his fist. It burst into flames, and its sheets fell apart. At that moment, Eliza entered the room. She dropped her cup in horror. The man ran up to her and tried to calm her down. He would fix everything. He was the royal repairman. Ancient writing began to evaporate from the page. This upset the girl even more, and frightened Lunda. The man did not understand her reaction. The elf began to cry. She said that she was giving up, she believed, but this was the only thing that was so important to her in the whole world. The repairman realized that she had not lied when she said that this book was important to her. It was the first time he had seen such a reaction from the elf. Land was lamenting how he had done such a thing. Lyle now realizes that the missing detail in the scripture seems to be very important, and he wonders why he was so stupid. He turns to his grandfather. The hero says that he has to fix it. He can't let the story of this book end in tragedy. He asks the old man to rely on him. Eliza showed Tilo-kun the treatise. She said that this book contains information on how to make many people happy with the help of magic. The little elf then asked her if she was talking about the magic of happiness. The elf confirmed this and said that it was a very ancient spell. Long ago, thanks to the described magic, there were many peach-colored flowers on this tree. But hearts are multifaceted. People and terrible creatures have started a war, trying in this way to achieve a single happiness. The girl finished by saying that after a very famous repairman took on the job of fixing it, and that's how the book was returned to the king. Tilo suggested that his sister Eliza go to the king and make everyone smile again. The elf said that if that master really brings the book into a decent condition, then the brother should see how flowers appear on that tree again, so she asks Tilo-kun to just wait a little. The next memory is of my sister crying, clutching a book, and asking for forgiveness, because it was all her fault. She screams that she is sorry, and asks for forgiveness again until she falls unconscious. After that, Tilo wakes up. He clenches his hands in anger and says that people age and die insignificantly quickly, but sins never disappear. Lyle enters the room. He says that he wants to see what Tilo is capable of. The hero says that he knows everything about the scriptures and his grandfather. Tilo doesn't believe him, his blood flows in him, so the repairman said that he fixes people's memories, let him not laugh. Lyle listens to him silently. The elf continues, he believes that all this will be repeated over and over again. Same as with Eliza-san. Now the hero understands everything, now he understands his strange feeling at their first meeting. Tilo knew everything, and that's why he is here. Lyle asks if Tilo came here because of his grandfather's sin, which his grandfather committed. The elf is silent for a second. He confirms this. The elf appeared in this kingdom as soon as he learned about the location of the scripture. He came to take revenge, but the one he needs has long been dead. However, Tilo is not calm. This sin is still walking around the world. He asks how the hero thinks what is happening to his grandfather now. Lyra is silent at this time. Tilo says that her life changed a lot from that day on. She felt responsible and guilty for the fact that the write-off had happened, so a nasty feeling settled in her heart. He never saw her smile again. It was the hero's grandfather who broke her. No, the one who destroyed the dreams of all the elves. Lyle understands that it's all because of his grandpa. He's sure that he regretted what happened. Anyone would think so. The hero wants to say something to Tilo, but doesn't have time. The elf starts screaming that Lyle is the same as him. Only his own name is important to him, and he doesn't give a damn about any of them. He wasn't even going to fix something that was so dear to someone. The hero would never be able to do that. Lyle also stops him with a shout. He says that his grandpa really did a bad thing, no matter how much he and the others regret it, but it won't help Eliza-san and everyone else. Lyle bows his head and asks for forgiveness, although he doesn't think the elf can do it, since an apology won't turn back time. Tilo listens in shock and silence. The hero's grandfather screwed up. He will fix his mistake. Lyle says that is why he now wants to take responsibility. Then the grandfather never fixed what he was supposed to. However, the repairman found comments in the diary on how to do it. He wants to fix everything. He is the one who must do it. Tilo trembles and asks what the hero is doing now. Tilo shouts that the writings of the ancient elves have been wiped off the face of the earth. No matter how you look at it, nothing can be done, even if the hero apologizes 1,000,000 times. What's the point of these words? Lyle explains that this is why he wanted the elf to use his power. On the last page, if they can understand it, they can understand the whole text, but for that he needs his help. Tilo gets even angrier. The hero says that the grandfather was very wrong, but he wants to correct all his mistakes, get to the truth, and return everything to its place in order to fulfill the dreams of the elves and return hope to them, therefore. That's why he would like Tilo to continue living only in the past. The elf clutches the treatise and begins to sob. He wipes away his tears and says that he understood the hero, and only once is he ready to believe him. The next day comes. Asya asks if the hero has really decided to give the scriptures to the elf. She sighs heavily. Lyle, as always, is in his repertoire. The hero in response says that there is one problem, the solution to which he does not know. He doesn't know how to tell the king everything. The girl agrees to go with him. They will come up with a plan and tell His Majesty everything. The main thing is that such an important thing for the elves will be in a safe place. Asya hopes that the king will understand them. The hero begins to shine with happiness and thanks the girl. She saves him so much. Now she wonders what kind of happiness magic it was. Lyle laughs stupidly and says, who knows? Asya grabs his cheeks and asks him not to make such a face. Why didn't they explain anything to him at all? The hero screams in pain at this time. He rubs his cheeks and tries to find the reason for this. At this time, Tilo runs into the house and knocks on the door. Eliza asks who he is. The elf introduces himself and says that they haven't seen each other for a long time. He asks her to look at him through the window. If possible, he has something important. She can just look at it. He starts reading the letter. It says that trusting someone is truly wonderful. Trust is probably the only way for living beings to communicate. Tilo slips a letter under the door. Eliza realizes that Londe-san wrote it. At the time he was stupid, inexperienced, and extremely self-confident. Let her know that he regrets what happened. He regretted it until his old age, and he will take these feelings with him to the grave. They will remain in his heart forever. Lund came to her, but she was afraid of people. No matter how hard he tried, their meeting never took place. If he could do something, he would do everything, just to correct the mistakes of the past. He never stops thinking about it. But this is impossible. The only thing left for them to do is to move forward. There is no way back. So he wants to fix one thing. Only a repairman can fix the scripture. Fortunately, he has a beautiful child. Someday, he will trust and act together with him. So one day, he asks her to show the world her beautiful smile, like wonderful flowers. Tilo is reading the scriptures at this time. Eliza is surprised to see flowers blooming on the tree through the window. She begins to smile through her tears, sighs, and says that she is very warm. The hero also watches the peach-colored flowers. The man was so angry that he started yelling at his client. He told him that if he didn't like his job, he could leave and find another job. The client was outraged by such rudeness from the master. He accused him of not being able to normally accept criticism at his age. When the customer left, a girl approached Luzane. Her face was indifferent, but she was still worried if old clients would come back to them after such a scandal. The man looked at her and asked her to be quiet. He noted that he had not asked anything. Luzane asked how she was feeling. Luna touched her hand, felt it, and replied that it was not fully recovered yet. Hearing this answer, the man tiredly patted his head. He stood up from his desk, where various notes and books were lying, and Luna asked him if he needed anything. Luzane continued to hold her head. He replied that he didn't need anything, so the girl could rest. Besides, her health left much to be desired. Luna looked closely at the owner leaving the office. On the table next to the bottles lay someone's pendant and a framed photograph, but it was placed face down on the table. Light was cleaning his workshop. He was carefully wiping his work area, humming a song. When he heard someone coming to him, he immediately went out to greet the customers. Luzane and Luna were standing in front of him. The man began to grumble. He thought this would be a decent place, but it turned out to be just a cheap eatery. The girl apologized to the owner of the establishment for the intrusion. Hearing the customer's dissatisfaction, Lore still asked how he could help them. Luzane sighed and muttered that since they had come, they should at least say something, otherwise it would look strange. Such incomprehensible and ambiguous behavior of the man raised questions in the repairman. He did not understand why they had come then. Luzane sat down on the sofa, and Luna remained standing behind him. She apologized and introduced her master, who was also a repairman. The girl was his assistant. Hearing that his client was his colleague, Lyle asked, so they turned to him. Luzane paused for a moment and then replied that it was about his assistant, Luna. He wanted to ask Lyle to fix her. The young repairman was confused. He didn't understand how and why he should fix a living girl. Luzane explained that Lana had a special mechanism built into her that needed repairing. Lyle immediately admitted that this was the first time he had encountered such an order. The man sighed and said that it was his personal development. The repairman thoughtfully approached the girl and touched her hand, asking if he could take a look. Mama Luna didn't mind, but Luzane didn't. The man jumped up and slapped the young man's hand. He grabbed him by the clothes and shouted at him not to touch her again. Lar was confused by such abruptness. He wanted to ask how he would work with the girl and the mechanism if he was not allowed to touch the moon. The man let the boy go and told him to shut up. He didn't care how, but the repairman had to solve their problem. Luzane warned the boy that if he failed, the man would make it so that he would never be able to walk. Tyr was the first client to threaten him like that. He stood motionless. The girl apologized for her master's behavior. He was very sorry. She bowed and admitted that Luzane had behaved very disrespectfully towards the young repairman. The man looked at Lyle expectantly. He asked if he would take on the job. Despite Luzane's rudeness, the guy still took on the order and promised to do everything. It was late at night. In the office on the table with the case of Luna, and in front of her on her knees sat Lyle. He looked at her legs. The guy was amazed by such an amazing work of his senior colleague. It was so detailed that anyone would take the girl for a person. The young repairman was also interested in whether she had a nervous system. He understood that if he made even one mistake, the moon might stop moving. Lyra looked at the girl intently and said that he still couldn't believe what he had seen. The girl didn't understand such interest in her and asked if something was bothering the repairman. Lair asked her if Luzane had created her. The girl confirmed. She explained that she had no memory of it. When Luna opened her eyes, the owner was the only person nearby. The guy asked if the man had also done the maintenance alone. The girl said that her owner tried to add new functions to it with every maintenance. Thanks to careful and caring treatment, Luna could still move. Looking at her, Lyle understood that his colleague could make a mechanical girl out of loneliness since she looked like an ordinary person. He wondered why the man needed to create her. The girl smiled grimly and said that Luzane was a very kind person. Luna said this so suddenly that Lyle did not understand what she meant. The girl admitted that for the owner she was just an assistant. If she broke, he could easily make a new one, but every time something broke, the man desperately tried to fix her. Then Lyle realized that before him stood a unique and perfect copy of the appearance of a living girl. As a repairman and professional, the hero saw a complex mechanism that his colleague repaired alone over and over again. However, what the boy did not understand was why Luzane had asked someone else to repair the moon. The girl asked why the repairman had gone quiet. She asked if everything was okay. The boy said he wanted to ask her something. After talking to the girl, Lyle headed to his senior colleague's workshop. When he wanted to go in, a frightened client ran out to him. Luzane shouted after him that he should not come to him for help anymore, since the man was complaining about his repair. The repairman threw bottles towards the door. When Luzane saw Lyle, he calmed down. He offered the young man to sit where he would be comfortable. As soon as the boy entered the workshop, a strong smell of fumes hit his nose. He had to cover his nose with his hand. The man noted that he had come without Luna, meaning he had not finished repairing it. The hero said that he had come specifically about his assistant. He asked why Luzane had left the girl with him. Luzane immediately said that even if he explained it to the boy, he would still have questions. The man asked if he had come to listen to a story or to complain. The boy replied that the whole situation seemed strange to him. Luzane didn't understand what he meant. Lyle explained that unlike him, the master of the moon had been able to invent advanced technology. The young repairman saw the man as the inventor who had been closest to creating man. Lyle admitted that he himself did not believe that a person could be created from mechanisms or with the help of alchemy. It was obvious that Luzane had the talent and skills of an outstanding professional, so the young man did not understand why such a person turned to him for repairs. The man said, dissatisfied, that instead of asking such nonsense, the boy could have continued working in silence. Luzane said that his eyes could no longer see. Lyle was not prepared to hear such an answer. The old repairman himself did not understand if his eyesight had begun to deteriorate sharply because of cheap alcohol or age. Due to his health condition, the man could no longer work normally and fulfill orders. Luzane was silent for a moment, then sighed. Now Lyle saw the whole picture of the situation. The man said that he could do nothing more for Luna now. That was the reason why he asked the boy to do the repairs. Luzane added that besides everything else, he was already old and would soon leave this world. He had created someone who would never stay and would continue to live even after his death. Now the man was not worried about leaving nothing behind. All his work was done for his own satisfaction. Fearing to misunderstand his client, Lyle asked why Luzane had created a girl. The man sighed again. He thought this conversation was ridiculous. The old repairman said he had a daughter. Whenever he returned from work, his little daughter would be there to greet him. Luzane would ask how she was feeling and apologize for not being able to take her out with him. The girl was just happy to see her father. She would reply that she was fine thanks to the medicine Luzane had found for her. Little Lena sat on the bed. She thanked her father for putting so much effort into his work for her. The girl was sincere with Luzane and loved him very much. She told him that even though her mother was not there, she was glad that she had such a caring father. While finishing her dinner, Lena promised that after she recovered, she would work hard to make it easier for Luzane to take care of her. She was sure that they would always be together. The man thanked his kind daughter. After another working day, which caused Luzane to be a little late, the man came home with a bag of groceries. He apologized for being late and said that he would cook them dinner. The repairman said that today he took an order from a rich nobleman, thanks to which he would be able to earn good money. Luzane wanted to use the money to buy good medicine for his daughter so that she would recover quickly. He was so happy that he didn't immediately notice that Lena was silent. The man approached the girl's bed and saw that she was lying quietly, not moving. Luzane froze. He called Lena, taking off his coat. Thinking that his daughter had fallen asleep, he went to wake her up. He wanted Lena to eat her favorite stew. Luzane asked her to get up and threatened to eat everything himself. He lifted her up. The girl's body did not react at all. The man asked if she could hear him. In fact, the old repairman immediately understood what had happened. His body was shaking with sadness, sorrow, and fear. The father held his daughter's body and asked her for answers. He cried in the quiet room. His light went out. Lyle realized that after the tragedy, Luzane decided to create Lena. The man was indifferent to the boy's opinion. He called himself a powerful fanatic who wanted to get rid of loneliness, so he created a doll similar to his daughter. That was the whole story. The young repairman couldn't even imagine that his client had such a past. Remembering the moment when he took Luna's hand and Luzane got angry and grabbed him, the young man did not think that the man simply wanted to distract himself from loneliness with the help of his creation. Muttering that they had already wasted time talking, Luzane wanted to suggest that Lyle return to his workshop, but he was interrupted by the young man, who asked him to tell more. The guy understood that he was now responsible for the moon, and he wanted to repair it as quickly as possible. But for this, the young repairman did not want to look at the drawings from which it was created. If Luzane still had them, Lyle would be able to carry out the repair faster and better. The hero bowed and asked his request again. Luzane was surprised by such honest behavior on the part of the young man. However, he still did not fully trust him. The old repairman thought that Lyle also wanted to know the secret of the creation of the moon, and said that the young man would not succeed, because Luzane was the only one who could create the mechanism. The man said there were no blueprints. The entire instruction was in his head. He added that even if he wanted to train Lyle, it would take months. Luzane believed that before the young repairman fixed Luna, he would already be dead. However, the hero did not agree with this. He said that if Luzane himself was expecting such an end, then the man would not be able to save Lena, nor his daughter, nor anyone at all. As soon as Lyle learned his story and saw the girl, he immediately realized that Lena was like a daughter to Luzane. The guy thought that the desire of parents to be with their child was not funny, so he was not going to laugh. Luzane had not expected such pressure from the young man. Lyle said that if the man hesitated, he would regret it. The old repairman had already lost a dear person, so he understood everything. Luzane shouted that he knew it. He admitted that he could trust the young master now. Turning away, the man muttered that Lyle was just an ordinary guy. He scratched his head and added that the boy was too stubborn to be an ordinary and unremarkable repairman who worked in a cheap eatery. Lyle took this as a good sign. When the master finished the work, he asked Luna how she felt. The girl moved her hand and said that she did not see any problems. She said that Lyle was an amazing professional. The young man did not think so. He took out the drawings and said that thanks to them, everything worked out. During the repair, Lyle realized how complex the structure of the moon was. But if you understand the logic, it is quite possible to repair it. The guy told the girl that her father is an amazing person. Luna thought about it. She agreed. Her master could really be considered an incredible master. The guy noticed that the girl became noticeably sadder. He asked what was the matter. Luna turned to him and asked if they could talk to him alone for a while. The young man was not against listening to her. Luna saw that her master was a kind man. He was clumsy, weak, and capricious, but it was funny for her to watch how carefully he treated her. The girl understood that she was a replacement for his daughter who died due to illness. So every time her body made a mistake, the man did everything he could to fix it. Lyle listened to her attentively. Luzane, as a parent, was unable to save his sick daughter, and after her death, he did not want to allow the same thing to happen a second time, but this time, with his creation, Luna. Seeing how emotional, worried, and loving the owner was to his daughter, the girl began to think more and more about whether she felt something for Luzane. Her thoughts led her to a dead end. Luna was just a mechanical doll. She couldn't have a heart, and therefore she couldn't express her feelings. However, Lyle hatched another. There was no doubt that this girl had one. Luna asked the young repairman what she should do. The repairman smiled and said that everything was fine. The girl did not understand him. The young man decided to help her convey her true feelings to Luzane. Meanwhile, the tired man trudged along the city streets. His exhausted fetue attracted attention. Passers-by turned around and asked if he was feeling well, but the old master passed by. Luzane laughed quietly at himself. He knew that sometimes his behavior was incredibly difficult for those around him. The man believed that this led to his failures. The master knew that he was a stubborn man. He remembered his beloved, who could love such a stubborn person like him. Luzane considered himself very lucky when his daughter was born. Even if both parents died, their memory of their daughter would live on. At first, Luzane actually created the moon in order to close the hole in his heart after the death of little Lena. However, at some point, the man was able to love the doll, which neither laughed nor cried, as his daughter. He became attached to his mechanism. Luzane knew he was rude and short-tempered towards Luna, but she continued to call him master and stay by his side. The man regretted behaving like that. He called his behavior pathetic. Luzane knew that Lyle was right, but he also knew that he was a stubborn man who found it hard to back down from his decisions. Luzane was simply afraid that if someone else came along who could fix Luna, she would leave the man behind and simply go to a new repairman. Luzane himself found it funny to think about it. At the same time, he didn't want to remain a fool for the rest of his life. Luna was too much like Lena. At least this doll should live a free life, breathing deeply. The tired man couldn't hold back his emotions any longer. He covered his face with his hand. At that moment, Luna and Line were walking to Luzane's workshop. Just on the way, they met a man who was sitting near the wall of the building and crying. Seeing the girl, he tried to get up, but nothing happened. The assistant ran up to him and asked if he was okay. She sat down next to him and put her arms around the man's trembling shoulders. Luzane didn't answer her. Not receiving an answer, the girl was silent for a while and then repeated her question. This time, she treated the unfortunate man like a father. Sobbing, Luzane looked up at Luna. His weak eyes saw little Lena in front of him, healthy and eating food. This was his memory of the past. The man did not stop crying. He was so sad to hear these words that he hugged Luna and thanked her. Lyle watched them with a smile. The girl froze, and then tears began to flow down her artificial cheeks. She hugged her caring and kind owner tightly. There was a smile on her face. At this point, the repair of the moon was complete. Lyle returned to his workshop, where he met Azia. She made them tea. Entering the room where her acquaintance was sitting at the table, she asked him if he would tell her what was going on. The young man did not understand what exactly she wanted to hear. The girl reminded that not long ago the guy started hiring employees. Lyle replied that he had no choice, since Luna's former employer closed the store, so he recommended taking her on. Lyle wondered why Azia was bringing up the topic again when they had already talked about it. Then the girl began to interrogate the guy very seriously about the new employee. She was interested in whether he knew how to make tea and whether he had any work experience. The young man assured his friend that Luna was not a bad girl and a very hard worker, so they would have no problems with her. Azia froze. She looked sternly at Lyle. Before that, Her Highness did not know that it was a girl who would come to them. Lyle asked why Azia had suddenly become so grumpy. The girl screamed that she herself did not know the answer to this question. The guy stopped understanding her even more. However, he was sure that they would get along with Luna. At that moment, they noticed that someone had come in. Luna apologized and said that from today on, she would be helping Mr. Lyle with his work. The girl introduced herself and added that she was happy to work on their team. Somewhere on the middle level of the dungeon, a guy was fighting a monster. Their fight had been going on for some time. He was out of breath, but he held his sword tightly. The monster was moving towards him. The warrior made a dash forward and killed the enemy. However, another monster was hiding behind the rocks. The boy was not ready for its attack, but his comrade managed to protect him. He looked at Tenya and told him not to let his guard down. The boy thanked Lind for his help. He didn't answer him. Tenya called his comrade by name. He asked if he was hurt and noted his strange behavior. The boy turned around and said with a smile that he was fine. He said that he had been invited to the Duke's house again. Land assumed that Mrs. Asha was being unreasonable again. He sighed and remarked that there were always a lot of problems with that girl. Asya was retelling Lyra Lin's words that she still had a long way to go, because the gentleman was still growing, and she needed patience. The girl did not like this at all. She grumbled that although Lind looked like a gentleman, he would criticize people behind their backs. Lyre said it was like family, which wasn't a bad thing. The girl thought about what kind of relationship she had with Lind. She asked her friend if his parents lived in the capital. Asya wanted to meet them. Hearing the question about his family, Lyre froze. The young man did not know how to explain it to her. As soon as he began to tell, someone knocked on their door. It was Tenya. The guy quietly came in and said hello. Asha was surprised that he came alone, since he rarely went to the repair shop alone. The girl asked if Lind was not with him. Hearing his comrade's name, Tenya hesitated and did not answer right away. The guys noticed this and asked what happened. When they settled in one of the rooms, Asha asked Tenya if something was wrong with Lind. The girl saw him yesterday and it didn't seem to her that her friend was in a bad situation. Tenya could assume that it could only be his imagination, but it seemed to him that his comrade was unwell or was tormented by something. Lind was constantly thinking about something. The young man decided to ask his comrades, with whom Land had long been acquainted. Then he learned that the strange behavior of the man could be due to siesta. Asya and Lyre heard this name for the first time and looked at Tenya questioningly. The guy said that Siesta is Lind's fiancé. Hearing this, the guys jumped up and asked Tenya again. They didn't know that their friend had a fiancé. The guy was surprised that Asya didn't know about it. She said that Anya wasn't there and had been talking to a man, but she had heard about it for the first time. Tenya became curious if something had happened between Lindo and Siesta, so he decided to ask the man why he was so gloomy, but he didn't answer. Lyle thoughtfully said that this was even more disturbing. Tenya admitted that he was worried about his comrade, but at the same time he understood that he could not interfere in his personal affairs. Perhaps, on one hand, the young man acted too selfishly and arrogantly, but Lindo raised him to be an adventurer when Tenya was an orphan. He believed that he owed the man and wanted to thank him. The boy also wanted to understand what he could do for Lindo in this situation. Lyle told Tenya that he was also indebted to Lindo. Asuya was also determined to help her friend because she could not leave him like that. They asked the young man to rely on them. After Tenya left, the boys immediately headed to the area where Lindo lived. Lyra admired the large and beautiful houses. Asuya did not pay attention to them. She asked the guy what he thought about Lindo. They had known each other for a long time, and the girl was worried that her friend had not said a word about his fiancée. Lindo's group was one of the best. Asuya met him when her mother hired her to accompany her. For the girl, he was like an older brother. She was worried that even when they saw each other yesterday, she couldn't notice that something was bothering her friend. Lyra assured Asuya that Lyra loved her, so he didn't want her to worry about him anymore. The girl thought that this could be true. The boys entered the territory of one of the houses. There they were met by a woman. She greeted Asuya. The girl was glad to see her aunt in good health. The woman warned that Lindo was not at home, and besides, the aunt herself was going to go to work. Asuya apologized for coming at an inopportune time. The girl asked if they could wait inside. The aunt did not mind. She led them into the guest room, where a girl was already there. It was Siesta. The woman greeted her. Lyra had not expected that they would meet Lyra's bride so soon. The girl apologized for not being able to meet the guests in person. She said that they could safely contact her if the guys needed anything. She introduced herself as Siesta Brando. The girl was sitting on a special chair. One of her legs was missing. Asuya and Lyra sat down on the sofa. Siesta also moved to the chair next to them. She apologized for surprising her guests. Asuya said that it was their fault because they came to them suddenly. Siesta smiled and told the gentleman and Mrs. Asuya not to worry about her body. She had been in this state for 5 years, and she was already used to it. Siesta added that Lindo had talked a lot about Lord Asa. She called the girl a lady, to whom her fiancé had been indebted for many years, and the young man a skilled repairman. Lyle said, embarrassed, that he would not call himself that. Besides, he considered himself in great debt to Lindo. The girl asked him not to be modest. Siesta remembered that the guests had come to an unscheduled meeting with Lindo, and asked what brought them there. Asuya said that she knew that Lindo had been acting strange lately, and added that, as friends, she and Lyle wanted to help him, so they came without making any appointment. Siesta seemed to be a little sad after hearing this. She admitted that despite the fact that they had been living together for so many years, she had never been able to notice any changes in her lover's mood. The girl raised her head and said that Lindo was most likely in a gloomy mood because of her. Asuya did not understand how exactly sweet Siesta could influence a man like that. The girl said that initially she and Lindo were in the same group. He was a famous adventurer, and she admired him. One day she managed to get into the same group with him. At first, Siesta and Lindo were rivals. They often argued, but respected each other despite their differences. As time went by, their relationship warmed up. One day, Siesta approached Lindo and happily announced that if their group completed the next day's mission, they would receive the SSS rank. This would be an unprecedented success for their team. Lindo said that all this happened thanks to the girl. Seeing Linda's smile, Siesta blushed. Their friend came up to them and grinningly noted that the guys were flirting with each other again. He jokingly suggested that they play a wedding, to which the girl shouted at him to shut up. The guy continued to mock Siesta. He asked the guys not to have their mating games during the quest. The girl screamed that they had never done such things. Lindo continued to drink tea. In the evening, Siesta and Lindo met on the street. The man apologized for calling so late. The girl didn't care. She asked what Lindo wanted to talk to her about, and whether he wanted to discuss tomorrow's strategy. However, the man began by reminding her that they had known each other for 2 years. The two of them had grown up together, as people and as adventurers. Lindo could say without a doubt that he was glad they had met each other. Siesta asked why he started talking about it. Lindo apologized for being a self-confident, stubborn person, but in front of the girl he loves, he always stopped indecisively. The man confessed that he was afraid that he might lose her one day. The girl continued not to understand what he was talking about. Lindo turned to her and said that he did not want to lose her. He got down on one knee and said that he wanted to be with her forever. She was his most precious treasure. Lind confessed that he wanted to protect Siesta until death do them part. The man put the ring on the girl's finger. Still holding her hand, Lind asked if he could hear the answer to his proposal. The girl cried with happiness. She agreed. The next day, the adventurers set out on a quest. Siesta rushed ahead. Her companions shouted after her not to do that. The girl, although she did not know it, did not listen. As Siesta ran, her gaze fell on the ring that was on her finger. She was indeed getting married. Today was also a very important day for the group, because if they completed this quest, their level would increase. Because of her thoughts, the girl did not notice the danger. The monster came too close to her. Her comrades shouted at her to be careful, but it was too late. The monster's huge paw struck right at Siesta. She woke up in her room. Her body was bandaged, and Lind was sleeping next to her bed. The girl immediately remembered that she had been attacked by monsters in the dungeon. When she wanted to get up, she couldn't feel her left hand. The girl removed the blanket and froze. Horror seized her. Feeling movement, Lind woke up. He was glad that his bride had finally woken up. Siesta grabbed the places where her left arm and leg had once been, asking non-stop where her limbs were and screaming. Lind tried to calm her down. Realizing her situation, Siesta began to cry quietly, and the man hugged her. Not far from them lay the engagement ring, which was broken. Asya and Lyle left the house. The young master could not find words to express what he felt after Siesta's story. He and Lind had a difficult past. At that moment, they met Lind himself. The boys told him how they met his fiancée, and also that Tenya had noticed his gloomy mood. They added that they promised to find out the reason for this. The guys apologized for meddling in personal matters. The man stopped them. He thought that it was he who made everyone worry. The young master called Lind and said that Siesta had given him a broken ring. When the man saw it, he admitted that he considered himself pathetic. In those days, he could do nothing for his beloved. When the tragedy happened, Lind could not protect her. The man didn't understand what he could do for her at all. He wanted to know what could make Siesta's life better, but in the end, he couldn't make a decision. It seemed to him as if he was forcing her to be near him. Lind said that Siesta's birthday was coming up. He thought that she didn't need a worthless husband like him. Lyle was indignant. He said that it was not like Lind at all. The boy asked if he really thought this was the best option for Siesta. Lyle saw Lind's actions as him simply seeking a way to appease his ego. The master understood that, as an outsider, he had no right to say such things, but he simply could not remain on the sidelines. Lyle asked what exactly Lind wanted from Siesta: forgiveness, redemption, or something else. The man was at a loss for words. At this point, Asya sharply asked why men were so indecisive at such moments. She reminded him that they were his friends, and he could consult with them in difficult situations. The girl pointed at Lyle and told Lind that he was the man who could fix anything. Asya looked at her friend and winked. Lyle came to Luzane for advice on how to make prosthetic arms and legs. He explained that he wanted the girl to be able to move freely and asked if the man could tell him how he could make such prosthetics. Lyle knew that he would have no problem repairing the ring, but the most important thing was to return the body that Siesta had lost. Luzane sighed. Just before the young man's arrival, he was going to close the store. The young master apologized for the inconvenience. However, he simply had no choice. Luzane was the only person Lyle could rely on. After thinking for a moment, the man asked if the boy really wanted to save Siesta. The boy looked at him seriously and said that he wanted to do it. Luzane had no reason to refuse his help, but he had questions for Lyle. He asked if the boy didn't think there could be problems with this, because you always have to consider the person's feelings. Luzane warned the boy that even if he really wanted to help and meant no harm, it was human nature not to openly declare one's desires. The man wanted the boy to remember this. He admitted that he would not have needed such help even for free, but a good person could suffer alone. After talking with his senior colleague, Lyle thought about it. He was already in his workshop, sorting through materials. The guy told Asya that, in any case, they needed to sketch out the drawings of the prosthetic arm and leg now, but he was not sure. The girl immediately realized that Luzane's words were bothering her friend. Lyle confirmed this. He said it could be a matter of spiritual strength, and he also understood that they could not mend their hearts. Although the body could return to normal, the soul could remain wounded. The young master thought about what else he could do for his friends. Seeing how worried Lyle was, Asya admitted that when she was next to him, she constantly remembered her mother. When he sewed her dresses, the girl managed to convey her sincere feelings to her loved one. She was able to live looking into the future without regret in her soul. Asuya approached Lyle and said that because of this, she was sure that he would be able to help Siesta and Lind. She added that the young man should not take everything upon himself. The girl doubted that the young man understood a woman's heart well. Grabbing the materials, Asuya told them to go to their house quickly. When the guys arrived, no one met them, which was strange. Suddenly they heard a noise behind the door and quickly went inside. They ran down the hallway and heard Siesta screaming for Lind to leave her. The man wasn't going to leave her alone. The girl screamed for him to stop. She didn't want to continue this conversation any longer. Lyle came up to them and asked what was going on. He asked everyone to calm down. Lind didn't expect to see his friend during their fight with Siesta. Suddenly the room was filled with the girl sobbing. She was sitting on a chair, covering her face with her hands. Asuya and Lyle looked at her with concern. Lind explained that he told the girl about his plans to fix the ring, and then she suddenly started screaming and swearing. Asuya sat down next to Siesta and asked Lyle to leave the room with Lind so they could be alone. Looking straight into her friend's eyes, she asked him to leave the girl who was tuned into her. When Siesta calmed down and stopped crying, she apologized for the fact that the mistress had witnessed their quarrel. Asuya said that she should not worry about it. The girl admitted that when she was near Lind, she could not stop the flow of thoughts. Siesta was worried that with such a body she would never be able to have children, and her fiancé loved them so much. Because of this, the girl felt as if she was stealing his dream. Asuya listened to her attentively and silently. Siesta continued to talk about her feelings. She was so happy when they were together in the group of adventurers. The girl remembered how good it was for them when they were comrades, and then became lovers. It was a wonderful time. Siesta loved him so much that it was impossible to find someone who loved him more than she did. However now, the girl did not want to remain a burden that would only drag Linda to the bottom. Siesta wanted to continue her story, but Asuya stopped her. She abruptly hugged the girl, not letting her finish. Asuya said that Siesta was wrong. She knew from the video that the girl said such things for the sake of her lover. The lady asked Siesta how she thought Lind himself felt because of this. Asuya asked if the girl herself really wanted them to break up. Siesta couldn't hold back her tears. She confessed that if Lind was unhappy, she would be too. Asuya answered that the girl should not be afraid. She said that when her mother was still alive, she managed to tell her something. Her mother was also sick, and after the wedding, she asked Asuya's father if he was happy. At this point, Asuya asked Siesta what she thought her father had answered. The man answered his wife that as long as he was with her, he needed nothing more. Only with this woman did the whole world shine for him. As long as they were together, I had nothing to fear, because together they would overcome any challenge. Siesta listened to Asuya. It was as if her eyes had been opened. The lady believed that girls should be more honest with their lover in their feelings. Asuya smiled warmly at her. After some time, Lyle and Lind returned to the room. The man approached the girl and knelt down. He said that he needed only her for his happiness. Lind apologized for making her wait and doubt for so long. He felt sorry. He admitted that the greatest happiness for him was to be next to her. Lind gently took Siesta's hand. He asked her if she would live with him for the rest of his life. The girl squeezed his hand and said yes. Several days passed. Asuya was in a smart dress. She told Lyle that she was starting to get nervous. The guy asked her with a smile what she would do if she was paralyzed by nerves. The girl said that she could handle it on such a special day. She reminded him that the young man himself had not slept for several days. Lyle muttered that he had been exposed after all. Asuya said that it was obvious since he was working on an important project. However, the most important thing for them was that the young master managed to do everything and did not feel bad. Lyle thanked the girl for everything. He added that without her he would not have coped with such a complex and large order. The girl blushed from such surprise. At that moment, Tenya announced that the celebration was beginning. Lyle clapped his hands along with the other guests. Looking at the happy newlyweds, he believed that even if it was difficult, the young man was sure that they would cope and would be able to move forward through the difficulties as long as they were together. Lind extended his hand to his bride. Siesta accepted it. Now she was truly happy and healthy. When another client came to see Lyle, the young man asked him to wait a bit and apologized. The man didn't mind, adding that the guy's workshop was better in the capital. The hero, not expecting such a compliment, laughed awkwardly. Luna approached the gentleman and asked to leave the clients with her while he did his work in the workshop. Having wrapped the sword in cloth, the young man thanked the girl, saying that she would help him a lot. He returned to his office where he continued working. A month had passed since Linda and Siesta's wedding. The number of clients had grown noticeably, and now the hero had some kind of work every day. Despite the large number of orders and popularity, he understood that he had room for improvement. The young man promised himself that he would try and do his best to become a true professional in his field. While Lyle was busy with his work, a boy came to his workshop. Without knocking or warning, he entered and asked the boy if he was the owner of the workshop. The hero turned and nodded. The boy introduced himself. His name was Cornet. Without saying anything else, he asked Lyle to make him his apprentice. It was clear that he was determined and serious. The young master invited the boy to his place and offered him a cup of tea. Korn sat tensely on the sofa. It seemed that he intended to leave the workshop only as a student of Lyle himself. The boy asked the unexpected guest why he wanted to become a student. Corny replied that he needed to fix something. Lyle offered to give him the thing so that he could do the job himself. He did not understand why the boy would have to go through such a long journey as a repairman's apprentice to fix something. Hearing this, Korn shouted that he must fix it himself. The boy bowed. He had no intention of retreating and was even more happy to ask Lyle to make him his apprentice. The young master glanced at him. He noticed that Corny's fists were clenched tightly, which showed how confident the boy was in his decision. Lyle agreed. However, he immediately warned that he did not know if he would be able to teach the boy this business. The boy asked if Korn could help him with some work now. The boy didn't mind. He got down to business straight away. When Korn was sitting at his desk in the office, Asya and Lyle were watching him through the door. The young man asked his girlfriend not to offend him. The girl noticed that his young student was full of enthusiasm. Lyle agreed with her. Cornet immediately threw himself into the work. Although he was not particularly good with his hands, he tried very hard from the very first day. The master believed that his new student would master the basics quickly. The girl asked if Lyle was sure of that. She reminded him that her friend had never intended to take on students. The boy agreed with her. However, Korn reminded him of himself. He confessed this to Asya. Besides, it was clear that the boy was serious. Seeing and feeling all the enthusiasm of Cornet, Lyle wanted to believe the newly minted student, who at the moment was sitting concentratedly at the table and working. Asya smiled. She accepted her friend's decision. After some time, the girl decided to approach Korn and offer to have tea during the break. The boy did not answer her. Receiving no answer, Asya asked if he could hear her. Korn continued to ignore the girl. Then she repeated her question. The boy considered this behavior intrusive, which irritated him, and he rudely asked her to shut up. Asya and Lyle froze at Korny's unexpected reaction. The boy casually helped the girl towards him, hinting that she should leave. He asked who she was and asked her not to talk to him anymore. Korn told Asya directly that she irritated him. He added that the girl was interfering with his studies and repeated his request that she never speak to him again. Asya silently left the room. Asya was outraged by such unexpected bad manners and rudeness on the part of Korn. Although Lyle asked her not to offend the new student, everything turned out just the opposite. Lyle knew that his friend would soon calm down on her own, but they needed to avoid similar situations in the future as colleagues. As Korn was looking at the drawings, a young master approached him. The boy told Korn that it was late and suggested finishing the next day. The boy agreed and got up from the table. Before the student left, Lyle decided to ask him what was wrong with him, communicating with everyone at least a little. He noted that sometimes repairs require not only skills, but also proper communication with customers. It seemed that the boy did not quite agree with this. He asked if it was really necessary. Korn said that if he got along with everyone here, his repair skills would hardly suddenly improve. He was not interested in useless things. He needed to get the hang of it quickly. The boy quickly hurried out of the workshop. Lyle did not have time to say anything to him. He was wondering where his new student was rushing to. After some time, the hero, looking at the map, realized that he was lost in the area and could not find Corny's house. The map led him to a completely empty place where there were no buildings. Before he took the boys as his apprentices, the young man asked him to write down where he lived. Now that Lyle could not find his house, he began to suspect that Cornet had lied to him. The boy sighed. He knew that if he asked the boy directly, he would hardly tell him, so the young master decided to continue searching for his house. However, 3 hours of searching brought him nothing. Lyle only became tired. He decided that it would be easier for him to talk to Korn tomorrow when he came for training. At that moment, he heard a noise in one of the houses. In the window, he saw Korn next to a woman. It was his mother. She was categorically against her son's proposal, and he did not understand the reasons for her refusals. Lyle hid in the bushes. The woman reminded the boy that she had told him several times that she was no longer inviting him to meet his father. Every time she saw his face, memories of that fateful day came to mind. Korn wanted to give her another argument so that his mother would meet his father again, but she shouted at him to go away. The woman shrank and said that she never wanted to see that man again. Emotions overwhelmed Corny. He felt injustice, sadness, and helplessness over the situation. The boy tried to hold back his tears, which made his body tremble, overwhelmed with emotions. Eventually, Cornet couldn't take it anymore and, cursing, ran out of the house. Lyle, hiding behind the bushes, watched the boy run away. Although he felt uncomfortable interfering in family matters, he couldn't just abandon his student. Having reached another house, the hero knocked on the door and continued until someone opened it for him. A man came out to greet him and asked who had come to see him. He asked if his guest was Korn's friend. Lyle in the doorway, he got angry. The guy did not have time to explain anything. Korn immediately accused the young man of stalking and rudely asked him to leave. The father tried to stop his son. The man said that he should stop behaving like that towards their guest. Korn just looked at his father angrily and told him to just shut up. The boy immediately ran out of the house and fled. Lyle and Father Cornet did not have time to do anything. They stood and watched the boy running away, stunned. The young master apologized for coming without an invitation and introduced himself. He said that they worked as a repairman and had recently started teaching Cornet their trade. The man also introduced himself. His name was Alphonse, and he was the father of the young apprentice, Lyle. The man muttered thoughtfully that it now became clear to him, because lately he had been worried about what his son had been doing lately. Alphonse bowed and asked for forgiveness for his son causing such inconvenience to his master. He was very sorry. The man understood how stubborn his son could be. Once he decided on something, he would never give in. Alphonse laughed and said that Lyle could refuse to teach Cornet if she wanted. The man admitted that even he had difficulty communicating with his own son. He saw that the young man wanted to talk about Korn, and offered to walk with him to the nearest park. Let's go ask if the young master has time for that. By the time they reached the park, it was already night. They sat down on a bench, and Alphonse began to tell what he called an awkward story. It turned out that he and Cornet's mother, Aine, were divorced. The man admitted that he drank a lot and showed bad. He knew his actions were unjustifiable, but he had a lot of problems at work at the time. Alphonse would finish his life with alcohol, which was selfish of him towards his family. Lyle listened to him attentively. The man said that the reason for his divorce from his ex-wife was not their son, Cornet, but their relationship problems. Alphonse saw how his child resembled his father. Every day Cornet lives with his parents' quarrels. He saw everything with his own eyes. Now Alphonse is talking about it, but he couldn't fix anything. The man clasped his hands tightly. Lyle asked what his relationship with Cornet was like now. Alphonse said that his son blamed himself for his parents' divorce. Father Cornet always dreamed of working in the royal castle. Since he was just a man, it was hard for him to get there. He had something he had to protect, and that was his family, Aine with little Cornet, who waited for him at home every day. Alphonse threw himself into his work and climbed the career ladder. His colleagues clearly distrusted him because a commoner began to rise so high in the service. The man made a small mistake and was fired from his job. This was the beginning of the end of his relationship with his wife. After his dismissal, Alphonse went downhill with his life. Every day he beat and swore, and his family tolerated it. Aine asked her husband to stop drinking. At such moments, bottles of alcohol were smashed on the floor. The man shouted at the woman to shut up. He thought she didn't understand him. Aine wanted to help Alphonse. She asked him to tell her about his problems, because they were his family. The woman was ready to support him. The man seemed not to hear her at all. He told her to shut up and leave him alone. Little Cornet watched his parents quarrel every day and heard his drunken father talking to his mother. Later, he began to copy Alphonse himself. One sunny day, Korn saw a box on a high cabinet in his father's office and became interested in it. He stood on a wobbly chair and took it out. There was a beautiful round watch lying there. The boy wanted to take it out of the box, but the chair suddenly wobbled. The clock fell and broke. It no longer showed the time. At that moment, Alphonse entered the room. He saw what his son had done. The man was furious. Not hearing Cornet's apologies, Alphonse grabbed him by the arm and asked him with a shout what he had done. The boy felt pain from such a sharp and strong grip. Alphonse looked at his son with some resentment. Korn, frightened, began to cry. The child's crying attracted Aine's attention, and the woman immediately ran into the room. She saw her husband standing next to their son, squeezing the boy's hand tightly. Korn was crying, and next to them lay a broken watch. Now Lyle began to understand this behavior of his little student. Alphonse told the young man that the silver watch was a memento of him and his wife. It was a wedding gift from the groom to the bride in honor of their wedding. The man felt a little awkward telling this. This watch symbolized the happy time that they had spent together in marriage. Alphonse shrank. He considered himself a pitiful person, remembering the past life that he had destroyed. The man couldn't understand how he could do this to the family he valued so much. Now he can only regret it every day. Alphonse understood that Cornet wanted to fix the silver watch because he thought he could fix everything. Lyle remembered how the boy had so desperately wanted to become his apprentice, to fix one thing. Now he understood his motives. Lyle understood why his student was so stubbornly interested only in repairs. He wanted to bring his family back with his own efforts. Lyle watched all this. Then flashed moments when he alone sat in front of the grave with his only relative who loved the boy truly. Alphonse's voice distracted him from his thoughts. He was calling the boy by name. The man noticed that the young master had suddenly turned pale. Lyle immediately assured him that everything was fine. The young man asked Father Cornet to tell him something else. After talking with Alphonse, Lyle went into Cornet's room, who was sitting next to the bed. The boy was surprised to see the teacher, but remained as rude as ever. The boy said he had spoken to his father, and now wanted to talk to the boy himself. Lyle asked if he could sit next to Cornet. He said with displeasure that the young man could do whatever he wanted. Sitting down next to the boy, Lyle said that he had been told about Corn's parents and their situation. The boy emphasized that he knew everything. Cornet pointed to the silver watch that lay on the floor in front of them and said that he was not the reason for his parents' quarrels and their divorce. The boy added that he did not care about their divorce. He just wanted to fix the watch because he broke it. Corn added that he understood perfectly well why the parents' relationship had worsened. The boy admitted that he was very hurt. With each word, the tears came closer and closer to his eyes. Cornet covered his face with his hands and said he wanted everyone to be together again. His family was simply torn to pieces. It was hard for him to admit it. Lyle looked at the boy with sympathy. He said that time could not be turned back. They could not change what had already happened, so it did not matter how much time passed, no one could change it, not a man, not even God himself. Lyle stood up and walked to the door. As he left the room, he looked back and looked straight at his little apprentice. The young man said he would be waiting for him in the workshop the next morning. Arriving back home, Lyle told Asya everything. He finished his story by saying that he had done everything he could. The girl noted that her friend was not like himself because he usually spoke softly to people. Lyle didn't think he had to always say what a person wanted to hear from him. His job was simply to fix what was broken. In any other case, a craftsman might have thought about directly helping, but Korn was a different case. Asya asked if the boy's problem was any different from the others. Lyle replied that the problem would not be solved until Korn decided to deal with it himself. Until he made a choice, the hero would not be able to influence anything. Asya was sure that the boy would have to go through pain for this. Lyle thought so too. He had already begun to doubt that he had made a mistake. However, to survive in this world, Korn had to learn to look ahead. The boys did not see the boy enter the workshop. He was out of breath. Calling Lyle, Cornet asked what if he couldn't get anything back. What should he do? The guy advised him to move forward and warned that facing painful memories is very difficult. Cornet had to accept that some things just need to be let go and never give up. Korn said he had no choice but to try and do his best to be able to change everything. He asked the young master to teach him how to make the future better. Lyle smiled and agreed to look at the future with him. All they could do was crawl towards a bright future and scratch their way to it through work and patience. They were going to create it with their own hands. The main thing for them was sincerity and value aspiration, that's all. Under the supervision of Lyle, Korn learned the craft without rest. Every day he worked on the silver watch he had once broken. The boy was in no hurry. He changed something, even a small detail, so that after some time he could see the result. When everything was ready, Cornet called both parents to the park. They did not know that they would meet each other. Alphonse sat on a bench and worried if his son was okay, because he had called him to the meeting so suddenly. Looking up, he saw Aine and was as surprised as the woman. However, the man was glad to see her, but not his ex-wife. Seeing her reaction, Alphonse offered to at least talk to her since they met like that. The woman sat down next to him. She asked if Cornet was okay. Alphonse replied that his son was fine. He said that the boy had found what he really wanted to do and had become an apprentice repairman. Aine smiled. She said that this was wonderful news. Her ex-husband agreed with her. After a short silence, the woman said that she was sorry for everything that had happened in their marriage. Even though she knew how hard it was for her husband at work, she thought only of herself, forgetting even about her son. Ain said that they should have had a normal talk. The man immediately began to deny everything, because he considered himself guilty of everything. He tried to put everything on himself, said good things to his wife, so Ain should not feel guilty. The woman continued to blame herself. She wished she had thought about corn. She had simply run away from her problems alone and put everything on her husband. Alphonse said it was because he had not been responsible enough. Ain said she knew her husband was actually a very kind person. Even now he was trying to take on everything on his own again, like in the past. At that moment, Korn came up to them. He said that it was hard for all of them then. The parents looked around and saw their son. The boy quietly approached them and apologized for keeping them waiting. Korn admitted that she had done everything she could and knew that it was impossible to return everything to the way it was. However, he did not want to give up, so he went to study with a master. Having taken out a silver watch that worked, the boy said that he wanted to see his parents happy. Seeing and understanding how much Cornet was trying and worrying about them, Ain and Alphonse ran up to him and hugged him. For a moment, they became a family again. Meanwhile, Lyle was in his workshop. He looked out the window at the night sky and said how beautiful the moon was.